Okay, good day everyone, and welcome back for another tutorial. We're still on the topic of loops and conditions, but in this video we will specifically be discussing switch statements. Switch statements are much like if statements, except in a switch statement you can specify multiple different routes that your condition can take you to. So say for instance we were using an integer and the integer was set to the number 2. And in our switch statement, we wanted to check to see whether the number was 1, 2, 3, or 4. We'd set 3 different cases for that switch statement, and whichever one it fell under, that is what section of code would execute. And if I translate that into an if statement, it would be if our condition is true, so if this equals 2, then do this, else do this. But in the case of using a switch statement, you can't use if else. You'd have to go if 2, then do this, and then under that you'd have to go if 3, do this, if. You have to write 4 different if statements versus one switch statement. So I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do that. All right, let's start a new project, and we're going to name this one switch, just to keep it simple. I don't know if that explanation was decent or not, but hopefully the example will cover what I did in much more detail. All right. As always, we're going to start by setting some variables. And I won't do much explanation on this stuff because we've already been through it. We will go through it again and again. Int number equals 2. We're going to use the same example. And then to spice it up, oh, forgot my semicolon. All right, this is going to be switch statement example. All right, how you start a switch statement. A switch statement will always start with the word switch. And as you can guess, followed by parentheses, much like the if statement, and brackets. Our switch statement, unlike the if statement, here we will not write a condition. More so, we will write what we are checking. So, say for instance, we are checking a user input. We put the variable we save user input under in the switch statement. But in this case, we're checking our integer that we named number. So we'll just put number in here. So that's how that always goes. So if you put if you declare a variable and you want to check that variable for multiple cases, then you would just put the variable name in here, and then the cases will serve as your conditions. So, all right, after we put that in our brackets to specify each case, we use the word case. And followed by the word case is basically what we're checking to see if our number produces. So in this case, we want to check to see if our number produces a 1. And then that's always followed by a colon and enter. And unlike the if statement, again, after we declare our condition and we press enter, we don't have to use these brackets. Anything we write under here will be considered in the case and executed if called. So we'll write, ask the console to print a line for us. Right line. The number was a 1. Okay, and anything else we write under here will also execute. So we can write another console and write line. I told you so. All right, and to end to end the statement, much like in how the if statement ended the statement using the brackets and then changing to else if it needed to. Instead, here we end our statement with the break keyword. Break basically means it wants to escape this condition and move on out of the switch statement, unless we're in a loop, which we'll talk about later. So after your case statement, we press enter and then we backspace so that we're back on the indentation with case 1. So now we can clarify our case 2, or our case of the number being 2. That's what that means. And instead of writing this again, I'm just going to copy paste. Okay, so this reads, all right, switch through these cases for the conditions that are applied to number. And these conditions are if number equals 1, if number equals 2. That's how it reads basically. So I'll comment here just in case you want to look over it. If number equals 1, do this. If number equals 2, do this. That's basically what it says. Spelled it wrong. So let's run this just so you guys can see. Let's change this to 2. And I told you so 2. All right, let's run it. Control F5. The number was 2. I told you so 2. So as you can see, they work as multiple if statements basically. And to break out a else in switch form, we use, instead of a case, we would use the word default. Basically what that means is if none of our cases apply to the number, then it'll go to the default. So basically, like, if 1 is not applicable, if 2 is not applicable, then do this. Just so we know nothing worked. So to do this one, again, let's print out so that we know it actually reached the line. I found nothing. That's what we're going to say. And ended up with a break. Now let's change our number to 10 so that it won't find it, and we'll get this else or default. All right, Control F5. I found nothing. So that's basically how your switch statement works. It also works with text and taking user input, as I stated before. I guess I can show you real quick with text. Let's see. Let's make a string. And the string is just going to be string X. And we're going to equal it to hello. And we're going to change this to X to match our string. And for the case, if our string says hello, ignore our comment here. If let's just change it. If string says hello, then we want the computer to print hello to you too. And we're going to keep that I told you so, just for my own preference. And our case 2 is just going to be nothing. If it says nothing, string says nothing, then we're going to let it print out the number was a 2. I told you so too. And our default is still going to be I found nothing. So let's run this and see what we get. Oh, forgot our semicolon up here. All right, Control F5. Hello to you too. I told you so. Okay. One thing to keep in mind with text, whenever you're checking text, whether it's to an if statement or a switch statement, it does take into consideration any capital letters that you put. So if I were to change this H to a lowercase h, it would refer to the default method because it doesn't find a string that exactly matches this hello statement. I'll let you take a look at that. Control F5. I found nothing. So be very mindful of using capital letters and lowercase letters because it does check for that specifically. And that's pretty much our tutorial for today. I didn't write a comment here. I'll just write one real quick. Else. And this code will be available in the link in the description. But for now, I will see you next time. Thank you and have a great day.